Our DNA holds more than just our physical traits, it also reveals key events in human history. Genetic research suggests that, thousands of years ago, there was a drastic collapse in the male population. This phenomenon, known as a genetic bottleneck, occurs when a population experiences an extreme reduction, leading to lower genetic diversity. What makes this case particularly strange is that the collapse affected almost exclusively men. While female genetic diversity remained stable, the Y chromosome, inherited from father to son, suffered an abrupt decline. This pattern suggests that something selectively eliminated men while women continued to pass on their genes. If natural disasters or epidemics were the cause, the impact would have been more evenly distributed between the sexes. But the evidence points to a different scenario, a period of extreme violence, where brutal conflicts may have wiped out up to 95% of the male population in certain regions. This possibility raises a disturbing question. Did humanity experience a global war in prehistory? To answer this, we need to explore archaeological evidence, cultural patterns, and genetic data. What really happened to prehistoric men? Genetic analyses reveal an intriguing detail. The collapse of the male population was not an isolated or random event. The drastic reduction in Y chromosome diversity occurred simultaneously in various parts of the world, especially in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, during the late Neolithic period, around 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. This pattern cannot be explained by simple population fluctuations. Something specific affected almost exclusively men, while women continued to reproduce normally. The key to understanding this phenomenon lies in genetics. When a population undergoes an extreme event, such as war or genocide, its genetic diversity collapses. If a natural disaster, epidemic, or famine had been responsible, the reduction would have affected both men and women equally. But the fact that the genetic bottleneck impacted only men raises a grim hypothesis: a war of extermination targeted against male populations. This may have been the result of tribal wars, where victorious groups exterminated or enslaved defeated men while absorbing women and children to expand their own lineage. The scale of this event is shocking. Estimates suggest that only 1 in 20 men survived, while the ratio of women may have reached 17:1 for each remaining man. No recorded war in modern history, not even World War I or World War II, has caused such a severe proportional reduction in the male population. If such a massacre really happened, archaeological evidence should show a trail of destruction. But where are the physical traces of this silent war? To find answers, we must explore the archaeological sites of that era. If an extermination war truly occurred, physical evidence should be found in the remains of Neolithic civilizations. And indeed, excavated records reveal a period of intense and systematic violence, with multiple examples of brutal massacres. At least 250 archaeological sites in Europe contain skeletons showing signs of violent death. Among them, a study of 2,300 Neolithic farmer skeletons found that over 10% had fatal injuries, such as deep cuts or puncture wounds consistent with weapons. Another survey of 3,138 individuals in Spain revealed that 23% had suffered severe injuries, with most of the wounded being men and teenagers, precisely the groups expected to fight in battles. But even these numbers do not fully explain the massive 95% loss of the male population. And there may be a simple reason: the violence could have been far greater than the bones reveal. Only 15% of deaths by sharp weapons leave marks on the skeleton, as strikes can hit vital organs without affecting bones. Additionally, many deaths may have resulted from infections, starvation, or other indirect consequences of war. Another curious pattern emerges in these archaeological sites. In many massacres, adult men were the main victims, while young women and children were spared. This suggests that these were not just mass killings but rather selective conflicts, where men were eliminated and women were absorbed by the victors. The brutality of these events is evident in some of the best documented prehistoric massacres. The Talheim death pit in Germany, dated to around 5000 BC, contains the remains of 34 people who were brutally murdered. The most striking detail? None of the skeletons show signs of defensive wounds, suggesting they were massacred while fleeing. And this was just one of many episodes of carnage. Other archaeological sites, such as the Schlitz massacre in Austria, reveal evidence of even larger conflicts, where hundreds of bodies were dumped into mass graves, often mutilated or decapitated. The evidence is clear. Violence in the Neolithic era was brutal, frequent, and selective. If this war was so devastating, what caused it? What led human groups to exterminate almost the entire male population in a relatively short period? To understand the answer, we need to examine the profound changes occurring in society at the time. The transition from a nomadic lifestyle to agricultural societies was one of the most significant changes in human history. Previously, small groups of hunter-gatherers relied on nature to survive, constantly moving in search of food. But with the Neolithic Revolution, permanent settlements, agriculture, and population growth emerged, completely altering social and territorial dynamics. While agriculture provided food stability, it also created new reasons for war. Unlike hunter-gatherers, who lived in small groups and could avoid conflicts, farmers were tied to their land. They needed to defend their fields, crops, and food stores, making them easy targets for attacks by rival groups. Raiding and land conquest became survival strategies. Additionally, social organization changed dramatically. Many societies began structuring themselves into patrilineal family groups, where male lineage determined power and succession. These clans fought among themselves, and victory meant eliminating rival men and absorbing their women and children. This model of selective warfare could explain the drastic decline in Y chromosome diversity. But this is not the only explanation. Some researchers suggest that not all male decline was caused by direct war. There is a possibility that as some dominant groups expanded, other male lineages simply vanished over time due to reproductive disadvantages. If certain tribes were more successful in warfare, politics, or reproduction, their genes could spread rapidly, replacing less influential lineages. The truth may lie in a combination of both hypotheses. The violence of the era, combined with social and reproductive changes, could have created a cycle of male lineage extinction over generations. But if the extermination was so intense, why did it stop? What caused humanity to emerge from this period of destruction and enter an era of greater stability? Over time, the violence that devastated the male population began to subside. Although wars continued, the scale of male selective extermination weakened as societies evolved. What caused this shift? One reason was the growth of organized societies. In the early Neolithic, human groups were small and tribal, reliant on military force to expand their territory and ensure survival. But as settlements grew and more complex social structures formed, power became based less on brute force and more on agreements, hierarchies, and economic exchanges. Another crucial factor was the rise of trade and diplomacy. Contact between previously rival groups enabled exchanges of goods, technologies, and knowledge, reducing the need for total annihilation wars. Instead of massacres, there was a shift toward political dominance and cultural integration, where defeated groups could be assimilated without eliminating their men. Additionally, societies began to specialize, making violence less necessary for survival. With the development of craftsmanship, metallurgy, and long-distance trade, not everyone needed to fight for food and territory. The emergence of government structures and organized armies also centralized power, making conflicts less chaotic and reducing the need for indiscriminate slaughter. Even so, violence never completely disappeared. Throughout history, wars and massacres continued, but the absolute male extermination of the Neolithic era never repeated. Over time, global populations grew faster than war-related deaths, lessening the demographic impact of conflicts. In the last centuries, violence has declined even further. Despite modern conflicts, we now live in the most peaceful era in human history in proportional terms. Studies show that since the early 20th century, wars have been in continuous decline, and life expectancy has increased drastically. If the male extermination hypothesis is correct, humanity endured an unprecedented period of brutality but managed to rebuild and evolve. What was once a constant struggle for survival gave way to more stable societies, where cooperation became more valuable than conflict. What remains of this dark period? Only fragments in human DNA and scattered skeletons worldwide, marking an era when war was not just about territory, but an event that profoundly shaped the destiny of humankind. If you enjoy this type of content, leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more videos like this. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. See you in the next video.